Imagine waking up one morning and, for the first time in years, you feel no resentment, no heavy remembering of who wronged you, no simmering thought about what was taken from you, no gnawing sense that life cheated you at some decisive moment. All of it has dissolved overnight. Your mind is clean, free, unburdened. You sit up in bed filled not with anger or sadness, but with something stranger, emptiness. It hits you slowly. That old internal fire you once believed was pain may have also been your compass. For so long, you knew exactly who you were because you knew precisely what had been done to you. A parent failed you. A partner betrayed you. Society stacked the deck in ways you could never match. These facts, whether whispered to yourself in the dark or proclaimed aloud with raw trembling, formed the outline of your identity. Take them away, and who are you now? This is the paradox almost no one dares to say out loud. Being a victim has a strange comfort to it. Yes, it hurts. Yes, sometimes it is unbearable. But it also gives you certainty. It gives you a story. It gives you an explanation for why your life has ended up the way it has. And, perhaps most seductively, it gives you innocence. When you are the victim, you are not to blame. Life has sinned against you. You have not sinned against it. Your role is suffering, not failing. But here is the unsettling question that lurks beneath the silence. What if that comfort is a cage? What if clinging to your story of being wronged grants you sympathy and belonging in the short term, but quietly robs you of the raw, terrifying possibility of becoming something greater? What if the identity of the victim, attractive as sanctuary, is also the very thing keeping you from stepping into the life you secretly crave? You have seen it in others, though perhaps more easily than in yourself. The friend who endlessly retells how an ex shattered their heart, and who measures every new relationship against that wound. The colleague who swears they could have soared if not for politics in the workplace. The sibling who cannot let go of childhood grievances, replaying them like mantras well into adulthood. Each person is alive, breathing, functioning, and yet their lives orbit one primordial wound. The wound provides stability and, paradoxically, even safety. To move beyond it would be to surrender the very scaffolding that holds their sense of self together. And yet, what a dangerous comfort it truly is. Because if life has placed its thumb on the scale, if destiny itself has picked sides against you, then no amount of striving can free you. Victimhood becomes not just a past description, but a permanent identity. And when identity crystallizes, choice withers. The bars of the story begin to close in. Think about it. Few forces anchor people so stubbornly to the past as injury. In a chaotic world where identities are fluid and fragile, being wronged feels solid. It offers clarity. You can doubt your talents, your ambitions, even your worth, but you can never doubt that you were hurt. Pain is incontestable proof that you matter, and when everything else collapses, this can feel like salvation. But salvation with strings attached, because deeper down, something darker is at work. The psyche whispers, stay here, in the safety of grievance. Don't risk moving forward where you might fail again. Don't risk freedom, responsibility, or transformation. Better to remain the innocent victim than to become the flawed, vulnerable human who dares courage. And so, whether consciously or not, many people choose the dangerous comfort of remaining victims. They polish their wounds until they gleam like metals. They build identities as survivors, resisting the terrifying prospect of reclaiming authorship of their own lives. But here is the paradox that will not let us go. Being a victim is often real, terrifyingly real. People are abused, exploited, betrayed, abandoned. To recognize the danger of remaining trapped in victimhood is not to deny these realities. The wrongs exist, the pain was inflicted, the scars are true. The problem is not in being a victim. It is in remaining one forever, even long after the enemy has left the battlefield. So now we must ask the great question: why does the human psyche cling so powerfully, and sometimes so secretly, to the identity of a victim? Why would we anchor ourselves to pain even when it imprisons us? What hidden psychological and philosophical forces keep us bound to this role? This is not an easy question. It forces us to turn the light of inquiry on the most vulnerable places inside us, where comfort and wound blur into one. But unless we face it, we remain half asleep, living lives circled endlessly around the same old grievances, never daring to dismantle the crown of thorns we've come to wear like a badge of honor. The comfort of being a victim is a paradox no less dangerous because it is seductive. It seems to relieve the burning weight of existence, when in fact, it extends it. To recognize this is not to shame those in pain, but to awaken them, to awaken you, to a deeper choice. Because hidden underneath all of this is the haunting possibility that victimhood is not just handed to us, it is also clung to, repeated, and recreated. And if that's true, then the real danger is not what has happened to you, but the role you unconsciously agree to play, long after the original wound. And so the stage is set. To understand why we cling to victimhood with such intensity, we must dig beneath the surface, into the hidden psychological and philosophical roots that sustain it. There, in the caverns of thought and shadow, lies the true answer. The hidden problem and its psychological, philosophical roots. The paradox has been cast. If victimhood is painful, why do we cling to it? Why would any person choose to remain inside a story that shrinks them? To answer this, we must peel back the layers, psychological, philosophical, even existential, and see not just the wound, but the strange architecture that grows around it. At first glance, it seems obvious. We don't choose victimhood, it happens to us. A parent leaves, a lover betrays, an institution oppresses, an accident strikes. The scar is inflicted from without. And yet, step quietly into the psyche, and you'll glimpse something unsettling. What begins as an event becomes an identity, and once a role hardens into identity, the psyche defends it with ferocity, even if that role is destroying us. Why? Because identity, however painful, shields us from chaos. Better a life of predictable injury than the abyss of not knowing who we are. This is where Carl Jung lurks in the shadows with his notion of the shadow self. The enemy out there is often a mirror of what lies dormant within. But it works in reverse too. The victim in here becomes projected outward. If I am fundamentally the wronged one, then the world will continually take shape as a persecutor. The psyche prefers coherence, even tragic coherence, over the terror of dissonance. To surrender the victim role is to fragment a carefully assembled story, and the unconscious resists this like a body resists drowning. But there's another psychological current here. Victimhood confers moral power. In a world obsessed with blame and innocence, being the injured one places you on higher moral ground. Your pain is proof of your virtue. Others wronged you, which means you, by comparison, stand unsullied. This moral positioning can be intoxicating. Nietzsche, merciless diagnostician of human ego, called this ressentiment, the strange alchemy by which weakness transforms itself into a sense of superiority. The powerless, denied direct strength, wield instead the moral weapon of injury and indignation. To remain the victim is to remain righteous, and righteousness is addictive. This addiction to the moral high ground is amplified in modern society. Look around. Outrage is a marketplace, and suffering is a currency. Social media has made victimhood one of the most visible signals of authenticity. If you have been wronged, your voice carries a special kind of weight. That weight is not always false. Voices of the wounded have revealed corruption, abuse, and entire systems of exploitation. But the shadow side is dangerous. Once victimhood itself becomes a form of status, it tempts us to polish and preserve it rather than transcend it. Injury becomes identity, not just privately, but publicly, woven into the fabric of how we present ourselves. Now consider Arthur Schopenhauer, that grimmest of philosophers, nodding silently in the corner. For him, life itself is suffering, the will to live endlessly gnawing at us through frustration, thwarting, and inevitable death. In such a world, the victim is not an exception, but the default. To Schopenhauer, life wrongs us all, brutally and without apology. Here, the hidden problem thickens. Every human being can justify the title of victim because the very condition of existence provides the evidence. And yet, against this bleak backdrop stands Viktor Frankl, who reminds us of a terrifying freedom. Yes, suffering is inescapable, but the interpretation of suffering that is never fully stolen from us. Even in a concentration camp, Frankl insisted, meaning could be wrested from agony if one chose to frame it differently. The danger of clinging to victimhood is precisely this. It refuses that freedom. It declares, I am injured, therefore I am absolved from choosing differently. And though this defense may feel protective, it is in fact shackling. Jean-Paul Sartre sharpens the knife further. Existence precedes essence. Who you are is not what has happened to you. It is what you continually choose. But the victim identity deflects this weighty freedom. It whispers, you are not responsible. Your essence is already written by what was done to you. And many, perhaps most, feel the relief of that whisper. For freedom is as terrifying as it is liberating. It demands constant authorship. Better to remain the haunted character in someone else's script than to face the blank page of your own unwritten future. This psychological and philosophical knot reveals itself everywhere, in relationships where people sabotage intimacy because closeness threatens to dissolve their identity as the injured one. In politics, where groups galvanize, not around shared visions of becoming, but shared narratives of being perpetually wronged. In personal growth, where individuals circle endlessly in therapy, recounting the same story, unconsciously terrified of who they might be without it. And underpinning it all is fear. Fear of freedom, fear of responsibility, fear of discovering that while the original injury was real, the continued imprisonment is partly self-inflicted. There is almost nothing harder than acknowledging the original harm was not my choice, but what I do with that harm today is. To say this aloud courts accusations of cruelty or victim blaming, and indeed, used recklessly, it can slip into those territories. But the truth refuses to soften itself for our comfort. Shackles held from the outside may one day be maintained from the inside. This is the hidden problem that festers beneath the surface. Victimhood is not only a story of pain, it is a story of safety, of moral power, of identity coherence, of social validation. And because of all this, people cling to it like a raft in stormy seas. But what if that raft is leaky? What if clinging to it ensures you never learn to swim? Here lies the deepest psychological cruelty of all. The same story that shields you from chaos is the story that ensures you will never truly be free. Which returns us to the question pressing harder now. If we do not recognize this hidden trap, what happens? What are the unseen consequences of living in perpetual victimhood, not just for individuals, but for entire cultures? What slow poisons are at work when grievance becomes an identity too comfortable to release? We must now shift our gaze outward to see how this silent comfort warps lives, cultures, even nations. The consequences are everywhere, though they often hide in plain sight. The unseen consequences. What happens when the identity of victimhood moves from temporary shelter into permanent residence? What happens when pain, instead of being metabolized into growth or meaning, becomes the bedrock of who you are? This is where the hidden problem reveals its sharpest edge, not only in the corridors of your own psyche, but across the entire landscape of human life. The consequences seep everywhere, often unnoticed until you realize how small, how brittle, how haunted existence has become. Begin with the self. Imagine an individual who defines themselves entirely by what was done to them. On the surface, this identity provides clarity. I am hurt because the world hurt me. But beneath, subtle decay sets in. Without realizing it, they forfeit authorship of the future. The present becomes a stage for reenacting an old script rather than writing a new one. The injury is replayed again and again, a myth that refuses to end. Soon, the person's emotions operate less like free responses and more like conditioned reflexes. The first consequence: stagnation disguised as safety. Victimhood convinces you that by staying close to the wound, you are protecting yourself from repeating it. But in reality, the endless circling prevents you from moving forward at all. The broken bone is never allowed to knit because you keep reopening it to prove the fracture is real. Without growth, the psyche begins to shrivel, starved of new meaning, yet unable to release the old meaning that once sustained it. On a deeper psychological level, modern cognitive science adds to this tragedy. The brain carries something called the negativity bias. We remember and emphasize painful events far more than pleasurable ones. Evolution wired us this way for survival, but when coupled with victim identity, it creates a relentless feedback loop. Every slight is magnified. Every disappointment resurrects old betrayals. You are scanning constantly for more evidence that you have indeed been wronged. And because the brain always finds what it looks for, the world begins to appear not as a field of possibilities, but as an ongoing prosecution against you. This leads directly into the second consequence: paranoia wearing the mask of vigilance. Victimhood sharpens the eyes until everything looks like a knife. Relationships strain under this weight. Friends become suspected of disloyalty. Partners are interrogated not for who they are, but for how closely they resemble figures from the old wound. Trust grows impossible because your identity requires the injury to be ongoing. Even kindness becomes suspicious, an omen of manipulation yet to come. Now stretch outward from the individual to the social. History is littered with what happens when entire groups adopt victimhood as collective identity. While grievance can rally resistance against real oppression, a necessary stage of awakening to injustice, it can also calcify into permanent posture. Then, communities begin to eat themselves from the inside. A narrative intended to empower becomes a chain. Energy that could have forged new visions is funneled into endlessly replaying past wrongs. And here arrives the third consequence: scapegoating. When individuals or societies are unwilling to release victim narratives, they begin manufacturing new oppressors, if none conveniently appear. Enmity is invented because the self requires the conflict to remain intact. We see this around us constantly: cultural paranoia, political polarization, conspiracy theories thriving among populations relatively safe compared to history's brutal standards. If the injury is your identity, then you will conjure enemy after enemy to keep the wound fresh. This is why whole nations can fracture into warring factions over grievances that appear minor compared to actual catastrophes of history. The psyche doesn't care about scale. It cares only about keeping the story coherent. Without fresh oppressors, the victim identity dissolves, and so enemies are manufactured. A rival party, a neighboring group, a faceless elite. The pattern is ancient as myth and dangerous as dynamite. And then the tragedy deepens. Because once victimhood becomes the lens, it reshapes even creativity and culture. Think of art born from trauma. It can be incandescent, piercing, transcendent. But think also of art suffocated by endless grievance, when the wound alone becomes the entire canvas. Innovation shrinks, imagination narrows, creativity becomes repetitive catharsis, never daring to move beyond the wound toward visions of what might be. Thus emerges the fourth consequence: creative anemia. Cultures steeped in grievance risk losing their capacity to envision futures beyond pain. A people who cannot imagine beyond injury cannot create beyond injury. And if they cannot create beyond, they are condemned to replay the same wounds generationally. The son inherits not only the father's scar, but the father's obsessive telling of it. Trauma becomes both wound and inheritance. Finally, arrive at the most chilling layer of all: the consequence of spiritual atrophy. For Jung, the task of individuation, becoming a whole self, requires integrating pain into new forms of consciousness. But when pain is clutched rather than cultivated, individuation halts. The spirit shrinks. The wound becomes shrine, worshipped daily, yet imprisoning the worshiper inside its narrow circle. Life's great arc of becoming collapses into a single point in the past. Being alive becomes less about creating the future than memorializing the injury. Spiritual stagnation drains vitality. It transforms resilience into brittleness. A life anchored in victimhood loses depth because it cannot risk transcendence. Sartre's call to radical freedom, to choose and define one's essence anew, becomes muted beneath the constant refrain, "I was hurt, therefore I am." But what if life is asking more of you than preservation? What if it is asking for a transformation? Refusing this is not mere tragedy. It is betrayal of your own becoming. And so the unseen consequences gather like storm clouds. Stagnation masked as safety. Paranoia disguised as vigilance. Scapegoating that corrodes societies. Creative anemia that suffocates cultures. Spiritual atrophy that hollows out the individual soul. Seen together, the danger is startling. What began as comfort, a coherent identity built around injury, becomes no longer comfort at all but corrosion. And here's the violence of it. You may not even notice until years have passed, and you realize your life has been orbiting a sun that died long ago. You are still circling it, worshiping its warmth, yet all the while freezing because the light went out decades earlier. This is why the dangerous comfort of victimhood must be exposed, not to erase the reality of suffering, but to insist that suffering not fossilize into identity. Because unless we rebel against it, the story keeps shrinking, pulling our lives into a gravity well that leads only to bitterness and decay. Which forces us to the pivot we've been dreading but desperately need. Is it possible to break free? To honor the wound without being reduced to it? To rebel against the suffocating identity of victimhood and transform it into fuel for becoming? That is where the path turns, away from decay, toward rebellion. The rebellion, how to break free. We've seen it. The wound turned into an identity, the comfort of grievance that calcifies into a cage, the unseen consequences that slowly devour vitality. The question now forces itself forward. If victimhood is such a seductive trap, how do we break free? What's important is this. Rebellion does not mean pretending we were never harmed. It does not mean minimizing the injury. That would only compound the lie. No, rebellion means shattering the hidden pact with victimhood itself. It means refusing to live as if pain were the sum total of identity. It means turning the wound from a static shrine into a dynamic furnace, something that burns but also transforms. But here's the paradox. Rebellion does not begin with rage against the past. It begins with turning toward the wound and speaking to it differently. The cage isn't escaped by denial. It's escaped by altering your relationship to the bars. Step 1. Reframing the wound. The first move is to see injury not only as a theft, but as a curriculum. This is not naive optimism. It is the rawest form of rebellion. The world tried to reduce you to what was done to you. By choosing to extract fuel from that very act, you rob your wound of its power to define you. You turn thief into strange teacher. This is what Viktor Frankl uncovered in humanity's darkest hour. He did not deny the brutality he endured. Instead, he declared that suffering had meaning, but only if one consciously chose it. In that act of reframing, he seized back authorship. His tormentors could starve the body. They could not dictate the soul's interpretation unless he handed it over. And here's the dangerous brilliance. When you reframe your wound, you don't erase it, you metabolize it. Pain ceases to be your definition and becomes your raw material. Step 2. Drop the crown of moral innocence. This is harder. Many cling to victimhood because of the intoxicating moral purity it confers. I was wronged, therefore I am innocent. But rebellion demands a terrifying step, the surrender of innocence. And here enters Nietzsche's thunderous laughter. For Nietzsche, clinging to grievance becomes ressentiment, the inversion where the powerless turn weakness into superiority. Nietzsche's counsel is merciless. Stop feeding on the sugar of virtue through injury. Drop the comfort of purity. Step into the wild, dangerous, messy freedom of authorship. Why is this rebellious? Because once you drop the crown of moral innocence, you are no longer protected from responsibility. Freedom returns. So does the possibility of failure. And yet, it is only here that true becoming begins. Step 3. Choose the higher enemy. Breaking free from victimhood does not mean eliminating struggle. Quite the opposite. It means choosing struggle worthy of your becoming. Most of victimhood's trap lies in endlessly circling the same injury, the same petty foe. The rebellion is choosing a nobler adversary, what Gandhi and King modeled with haunting power. For Gandhi, the British Empire was the immediate antagonist, but colonial power was not the true enemy. His real adversary was injustice itself, an eternal principle requiring creative resistance. Likewise, King stood not only against segregationists, but against hatred itself. By elevating their adversaries, they elevated themselves, breaking free from being permanently defined merely as victims of circumstance. And so for you, instead of remaining shackled to the specific person who betrayed you, can you choose as your adversary the principle of betrayal itself, the great universal battle to confront unfaithfulness wherever it lives? Instead of obsessing over the boss who stifled you, could you step into a larger rebellion against mediocrity or cynicism? Break free by refusing to let your life's adversary be too small. Step 4. Reclaim responsibility, not as blame but as power. One reason victimhood seduces is its relief. It was not my fault. True enough. But rebellion insists on a deeper truth. It may not be my fault, but it is now my responsibility. This shift is seismic. Blame points backward. Responsibility stretches forward. Once you claim responsibility for what happens next, the past ceases to be your prison. You reclaim authorship. You step into daunting freedom. This is Sartre's radical call. Existence precedes essence. Your essence is not carved by the knife of the past forever. You choose. Always you choose. To rebel against victimhood is to shoulder that terrifying choice daily. Step 5. Create from the ashes. Finally, the ultimate rebellion is not survival. It is creation. To stop circling injury and instead make from it something new. Every scar holds an immense energy. To refuse victimhood is to redirect that energy into art, relationships, innovation, service. Think of every poet, philosopher, or visionary who transmuted agony into masterpieces. Their rebellion wasn't that they weren't wounded. Their rebellion was that the wound would not have the last word. They forged not only healing, but beauty from damage. In martial arts, sparring partners are thanked, even when bruises are deep, because they sharpen your skill. The rebellious spirit sees pain likewise, as raw tension that can transform into power, if you dare. The flavor of liberation. So what happens when you rebel against victimhood? Something astonishing. The wound remains, scar tissue intact, but it ceases to dictate your every step. You no longer orbit endlessly around what was done to you. Instead, you absorb it, fold it, weave it into the mantle of becoming. Enemies still arise. Betrayals may still come. Suffering forever lurks. But now they arrive not as definitions, but as instruments. Bruises still sting, but they sting in service of growth rather than stagnation. And in this, liberation doesn't mean a life without pain. It means a life where pain has been claimed, transmuted, and outgrown. A life where your story ceases to be about who hurt you and becomes instead about who you became from it. The fierce smile. Picture it. You stand before the wound one last time. That faithful ghost that has held you hostage for years. But this time, instead of bowing in reverence or recoiling in resentment, something surprising happens. You smile. A fierce, almost feral smile. Not because the pain was good, not because the injury was justified, but because you have stolen its fire and made it burn for you. You have rebelled against the comfort of victimhood, and in rebelling, you have made yourself free. But a final veil remains. We have reframed, chosen, taken responsibility, rebelled. Yet isn't there one deeper question still unanswered? If suffering is inescapable, if every wound endlessly tempts us toward victimhood, then why has existence itself been designed this way? Why is life so bent on forcing us into this duel between comfort and freedom? This is where we must go last, the revelation beneath victimhood itself, the ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization. Stand still for a moment. Look back at what we have crossed, the hidden seduction of victimhood, the trap of identity, the corrosive consequences, and the fierce rebellion needed to break free. But even rebellion, for all its fire, leaves one last question burning. Why is life built this way at all? Why would existence allow suffering to be so central, so constant, so defining? Why structure the human journey so that pain is the very soil of becoming? The answer is staggering. It is precisely because, without suffering, without opposition, there would be no you at all. Identity, meaning, and freedom exist only through friction. Just as muscles only grow when torn, and light is perceived only by its interruption with shadow, so the self is born through what resists it. If nothing had ever harmed you, your life might feel smoother, but it would also feel hollow, because there would be no depth to hold you in place. Think about this. If you never struggled against betrayal, could you even know what fidelity was? If you had never been pressed down, would you know how high your spirit could stretch? Courage, compassion, resilience, all the virtues we celebrate cannot exist in a vacuum. They only emerge when life tests them, when reality says, prove it. You are not sculpted merely by the pleasant. You are carved by resistance. This is the ultimate truth. Your wounds are not outside of your story. They are the story. The injury is not an interruption of your life's arc. It is the arc. The moments you cursed as unfair, broken, devastating were also involuntary miracles, hammering shape into your soul. That shape, that depth, this is who you are. Look closely. Every myth humans have ever told whispers this truth. In epics from Gilgamesh to the Odyssey, from the Gita to Dante's Inferno, the hero does not become hero in absence of trials. He becomes through them. The monsters, the betrayals, the abyss itself, these are not incidental. They are intentional. Every labyrinth exists to force transformation. Without the trial, there is no transcendence. Without descent, no climb. We recoil at this because part of us clings to the fantasy. What if life had been easier? What if no one had betrayed me? What if I had not endured suffering? But pull that thread long enough, and you soon realize you would be a blank silhouette, a figure without definition. For it is the adversities you endured that carved your edges, the betrayals that clarified your loyalties, the humiliations that deepened your humility, the obstacles that forced your latent strength awake. Without your pain, there would be no you at all, only a shadow of an untested possibility. And isn't that the cruel elegance of life? For even figures of extraordinary vision, Christ upon the cross, Gandhi facing empires, King braving prison bars, it was never the absence of opposition that made their message ring eternal. It was the profound depth of their resistance against suffering. Stripped of their struggles, their stories collapse into trivia. Stripped of yours, so would yours. Here lies the final paradox. The very enemies we curse are also our midwives. Without them, we remain unborn. Every adversary is in truth also author, etching you into existence with their defiance. When you grasp this, something changes. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? Instead, you whisper, what in me would have never awakened if this had not happened? This doesn't mean you romanticize cruelty or pretend injustices are good. No. What it means is that you see the deeper architecture of things. Life is a sparring partner. Pain is not there to annihilate you, but to summon you. Victimhood says, I was ruined. Rebellion says, I refused ruin. But the ultimate truth goes further still. I needed the ruin. Without it, I am not. And here another shocking realization arrives. It is not only external enemies that function this way, but life itself. Schopenhauer was right in part when he declared, life is suffering. But what looks like verdict can, with different eyes, be seen as gift. For if life itself is your universal opponent, then the magnitude of your identity rises to match. Life is not against you. Life is for you by being against you. Death, the final antagonist, becomes the most beautiful teacher of all. Without mortality, you would delay living endlessly. Without the brevity of time, urgency would wither. Every fleeting embrace, every fragile joy, every choice that feels unbearable in its consequence, all of them sparkle only against the shadow of dying. Death, the greatest enemy, is also the ultimate sculptor of meaning. This is the realization people feel in their deepest moments of clarity, that the very resistance of life is what makes life luminous. The enemies you once begged God to take away were the quiet carpenters of your character. The betrayals you thought buried you were really chisels, cutting space in you for greater love, depth, and resilience. Do you feel the shift yet? No longer shrinking from opposition as curse, you begin to dance with it. As if the rhythm of enmity is the drumbeat beneath your life's song. As if every scar is not disfigurement but inscription, the hidden poetry that tells your true name. And then gratitude arrives. Not polite, not sentimental, but volcanic gratitude. Gratitude fierce enough to almost resemble love. You look back at your enemies, your griefs, your shadows, and for one brief, shattering instant, you feel something unimaginable. Reverence. Not reverence for cruelty itself, but for the impossible alchemy that turned that cruelty into you. Reverence that without those wounds, no you could exist to feel reverence at all. This is the circle closing. Every time you curse an adversary, you curse the hand that forged you. Every time you bless the enemy's role, not their act but their role, you bless your own unfolding. And so liberation reaches its final form. No longer victim, no longer even merely rebel, but transcendent. Not asking for an easy life without wounds, but asking for the courage to meet wounds as doorways. Not fearing enemies, but seeing them as co-authors. Not resenting life's resistance, but thanking it for sculpting you into consciousness at all. A cinematic ending. Picture it. You stand on a vast battlefield littered with every scar of your life. Around you stand the silhouettes of all your enemies, your betrayers, the shadows you carried for years. They do not vanish, they remain as witnesses. And then, in the silence of that field, something rises in you. You realize you are still breathing, still burning, still alive. You realize your spine was stiffened by opposition, your compassion humbled by loss, your love sharpened by grief. Each scar not shame but scripture. Your posture, your convictions, your very soul are mosaics carved by those you once raged against. Suddenly, your chest is full of something volcanic. Gratitude. #it meta, pause. Sex, 0.05. Gratitude that is fierce, jagged, nearly unbearable. Gratitude so powerful it rewrites your definition of love itself. You take a step forward now, knowing there will be more enemies, more hardships, more grief. But you no longer see them as thieves. You see them as ushers. You stride into resistance not with dread, but as a dancer steps into music, as a sword sparks against the stone, as a seed splits against the soil to climb into the sun. This is the ultimate truth. Your enemies do not only test you, they create you. They are not interruptions in your path. They are the path. Enemy, ally, fate, mirror. They converge into one, and in recognizing them, you finally recognize yourself.